Excellencies, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and a warm welcome to all of you joining us here in Bangkok and also from across the region through our online platforms to the regional commemoration of the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. The UN is marking its 75th anniversary at a time of great disruption for the world, compounded by an unprecedented global health crisis with severe economic and social impacts. In January 2020, the Secretary General launched the UN 75 initiative, dubbed the world's largest conversation, where thousands of people shared their hopes and fears for the future, as well as their expectations of international cooperation and of the UN in particular. Today, we are gathered here to spotlight the Asia-Pacific perspectives on the UN's 75-year journey, on its role in building cooperation across countries and people in the region, and on the pathway towards sustainable development and a better future post-COVID-19. Before we start, I kindly ask participants in the Microsoft Teams platform to switch off your videos and mute your microphones. Without further ado, let us begin the commemoration this morning with special remarks from Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations.
Dear friends, the 75th anniversary of the United Nations falls in the middle of a global pandemic. Our founding mission is more critical than ever: to promote human dignity, protect human rights, respect international law, and save humanity from war. When the pandemic hit, I called for a global ceasefire. In our world today, we have one common enemy, COVID-19. Now is the time for a stepped-up push for peace to achieve a global ceasefire. The clock is ticking. And we must also make peace with our planet. The climate emergency threatens life itself. We must mobilize the whole world to reach carbon neutrality, net zero emissions of greenhouse gases by 2050. A growing number of cities, countries and companies have already pledged to meet this goal. Around the world, we must do more to end human suffering from poverty, inequality, hunger and hatred, and fight discrimination on the basis of race, religion, gender or any other distinction. The months of pandemic have seen a horrific rise in violence against women and girls. We must build on progress. A remarkable global collaboration is underway for a safe, affordable and accessible COVID-19 vaccine for all. The Sustainable Development Goals give us an inspiring blueprint for recovering better. We face colossal challenges. With global solidarity and cooperation, we can overcome them. That's what the United Nations is all about. On this anniversary, I ask people everywhere to join together. The United Nations not only stands with you, the United Nations belongs to you and is you with the peoples. Together, let us uphold the enduring values of the United Nations Charter. Let us build on our advances across the decades. Let us realize our shared vision of a better world for all.
A phrase that will echo very strongly as we face the challenges of this year. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming United Nations Under-Secretary General and the Executive Secretary of ESCAP, Ms. Armida Salsiah Alisjahbana, to present her opening remarks. Ms. Alisjahbana.
His Excellency Don Pramudwinai, Deputy Prime Minister, Foreign Minister of the Kingdom of Thailand, Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to welcome you to the commemoration of the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. This milestone is a historic opportunity to shape our future together in the Asia-Pacific region and beyond. Since the aftermath of the Second World War, the resurgence of countries has lifted billions of people out of extreme poverty, hunger, and injustice. Region's development success story has been instrumental in transforming societies while providing hopes and lifelong opportunities to everyone, everywhere. The peoples have remained at the front and center to inspire this great transformation. Yet, the remaining development challenges are creating critical barriers to reach the furthest behind. Widening socioeconomic inequality, lagging social protection schemes, growing digital divide, rising climate change impacts, and rapidly eroding public trust need decisive actions now. In midst of this regional development landscape, the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic has further exacerbated fault line of our societies and polity. Today, harnessing regional cooperation to advance the sustainable development goals must remain our compass to build back better. No country can fight this pandemic alone, and no country can be secured when other countries in its neighborhood are fighting the pandemic. Investing in multilateralism cannot be overemphasized for a better, greener, and resilient recovery in this decade of action. The United Nations is collaborating and coordinating with member states and all stakeholders to protect people, ensure economic dynamism, forge sustainable connectivity, and restore environment. History teaches that we are more effective and relevant if we empower people to support the societal transformation that we aspire together. Accelerating progress toward the 2030 Agenda, the Paris Agreement, the Sendai Framework, and other internationally agreed development goals is possible only through an enhanced multilateral cooperation and development partnership. In Asia and the Pacific, the people-centered policy solutions have been the hallmark of governments in guiding development discourse. It's heartening to acknowledge that Thailand has been playing a significant role in promoting harmony between economy and environment to build a unifying vision for our shared future. Thailand's experiences in the application of sufficiency economy philosophy, introduced by His Majesty the late King Bhumibol Adulyadej the Great, for sustainable development is inspirational for development practitioners and policymakers across the region. Throughout this incredible journey, Bangkok has remained home to the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific since 1949, and UN regional offices thereafter. On behalf of the UN family, let me extend our deepest appreciation to the Royal Thai government for your gracious hospitality, unmatched generosity, and unwavering support. As we mark the 75th anniversary of the United Nations, compassionate leadership and inclusive multilateralism are as relevant today as they were 75 years ago. Let us seize this defining moment of our time. We must shape the Asia-Pacific region's shared prosperity for all together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alice Chapana, for your remarks sharing the regional overview. Allow me to now invite Ms. Geeta Sabawal, United Nations Resident Coordinator in Thailand, to deliver her remarks. Ms. Sabawal?
Your Excellency, Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Don Poramudvinai, member states, colleagues, and friends, it's a real honor to address member states and all of you in celebration of UN Day this year, the 75th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations. As we know, Thailand has shown remarkable progress in the face of COVID, and I truly feel fortunate to be here given global events. This is the first country that has assessed its pandemic response and how to improve it, including strengths within the health system, civil society, and government. This can be replicated in other countries as part of their own response plans. We face major challenges sustaining development gains while strengthening national resilience to cope, adapt, and transform to turn crisis into opportunity. There's still much work to be done to fulfill Secretary General's mandate to build back better with a focus on inequality and a green recovery. As we set up our SDG Youth Panel, I've been interviewing young people about what SDGs mean to them. One young woman could not have been more clear. It's about collective survival, fear that we will die young, and inequality. The United Nations has a collective responsibility to her and to her entire generation. With government and civil society, UN Thailand is strengthening partnerships for innovation. During the pandemic, we've seen how important it is to find digital solutions, such as virtual learning, and to develop science-based responses. These principles, of course, apply to epidemics, but also to the climate crisis that affects us all, the symptoms of which we see every year in haze and flooding in Thailand. We must also address gender, income, and other inequalities that have often been aggravated by the pandemic. As we look at the results of the UN 75 survey, we get a clearer picture of the priorities of people in Thailand. When asked where we should be in 25 years, most responses focused on human rights, environmental protection, and better access to education. Respondents also cited climate change and environmental issues as the most influential trends of the future. In addition, we need deeper engagement with the private sector, holding them accountable in sustainable development in a mutual relationship in which we are equally accountable. SCAP estimates that 50 baht per person per day would achieve the SDGs in Thailand. The private sector, represented by the Global Compact Network Thailand, has already allocated 1.2 trillion baht in projects to advance SDGs. Much more needs to be done. To conclude, we know that youth engagement and leadership is absolutely essential for the future we want and the UN we need. We need to redouble our efforts in youth collabs, find new ways to reach the young people and engage with them to find solutions to the development challenges of today. Most importantly, we need to listen to their voices and build partnerships to take meaningful action on SDGs. Given the ongoing situation in Thailand, it's all the more important to engage in dialogue and commit to mutual understanding. Thank you all for your remarkable work this year and for your commitment to UN Thailand and the welfare of the country. We are eager to continue our partnerships into the year to come as Thailand celebrates its own 75th year of participation in the United Nations. I look forward to listening and engaging with you all and the young innovators in the regional dialogue on this important day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sabawal. Please join me in welcoming His Excellency Mr. Don Pramudwinai, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Kingdom of Thailand, to share with us his insights on the role of the United Nations and the way forward. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Good day to you all, and greetings from Thailand, not just to only our members who are present in this SCAP conference room, but those online, and a good number participating also in the podcast. Excellencies, Executive Secretary Alice Jabana, UN Resident Coordinator Sabawal, and ladies and gentlemen, it certainly is an honor and pleasure for me to represent the Royal Thai government in joining the United Nations family to celebrate the UN Day and commemorate the 75th anniversary of the United Nations at SCAP today. UN was born in a very uncertain world, emerging of the most devastating war in human history. The founders have put their hopes and dreams in a new world organization that would promote lasting peace and stability, which is here, UN. Over the years, the UN has become the cornerstone of multilateralism, guided by the principle enshrined in the United Charter. Through the works of the United Nations, millions of lives have been saved, lived out of poverty, and are able to live in dignity, free from want and fear. It is therefore fitting that in its 75th years, the United Nations and its agencies, funds, programs, and Secretary General were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize 12 times, and with the World Food Program as the newest laureate this year. Now we are talking about a 75 years old UN, and next year it will be the turn of Thailand, our partnership with UN for 75 years as well. The year 2020 has been particularly challenging in this era of disruption, where multilateralism is under threat, compounded by the global COVID-19 pandemic and accelerating climate change. New and old problems simultaneously demand our attention. The world needs a strong UN to deliver creative new normal solutions. As we celebrate the historic anniversary of the United Nations, I would like to share some ideas about how we can build on our past achievements and effectively address pressing global and regional challenges together. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 pandemic is our most daunting challenge at hand. It's hampering our progress on the Sustainable Development Goals in the Asia-Pacific. Science, technology, and innovation will play a key role in post-COVID-19 recovery plans. We should therefore enhance collaboration on STI while ensuring that scientific advancement and resources mobilization, especially on the COVID-19 vaccine, can be accessed by all groups. For innovation to bear fruit, appropriate technologies are suited to national circumstances must be prioritized. Social and technological innovation should be combined in this regard. And Thailand draws strength from the sufficiency economy philosophy, or SEP in short, bestowed by His Majesty King Bhumibol during the day. The Thai government and private sector alike resort to SEP as a guide to inventing creative solutions for our socioeconomic problems, with an aim to promote sustainability and resilience from within. In past decades, Thailand had partnered with United Nations for national socioeconomic development. We have shared locally driven best practices, including the SEP with United Nations agencies and other countries through South-South cooperation. As we look to the future, in the common pursuit of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development that leaves no one behind, mobilizing and empowering all stakeholders, especially women and youth, will be truly a game changer. Thailand is immensely proud to be the host country to ASCAP and a regional hub for United Nations agencies. The United Nations regional presence has provided platforms for exchanges and coordination that have advanced the development agenda, even today. As the platforms have gone virtual in response to COVID-19, they continue to provide a vital focus for joint efforts to build back better. Thailand remains committed to regional cooperation and to working constructively with the United Nations in the spirit of multilateralism. And in marking UN Day and commemorating the 75 years of the United Nations, let us recommit the common ideals as well as the future promise of concrete actions. Let us assert ownership of a multilateral institution that is responsive and fit for the purposes, so as to allow us to face upcoming uncertainties with confidence. And meanwhile, we, the people, should keep on strongly our partnership for peace and prosperity for the good of our planet. And that is the essence of the Global Agenda 2030 for 5 Ps. I thank you very much. Thank you. And happy United Nations Day. Thank you again.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Now, we are honored to have several dignitaries and eminent persons from across Asia and the Pacific share with us their reflections in a special video presentation. We hope you enjoy it.
Asia and the Pacific has experienced extraordinary progress with the United Nations over the last 75 years. Cooperation has allowed us to overcome harrowing challenges and celebrate battles won for sustainable development. Now more than ever, we need collective resolve to clear mounting hurdles and achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in the decade of action.
Our UN Day is an occasion to reflect on how far we've come and how much more needs to be done. In the Pacific, we are seeing more and more of intensified climate-related disasters, sea level rise, and the degradation of our oceans. As we recover from COVID-19, let's be reminded by our UN 75 declaration that the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Paris Agreement is a necessity for our survival.
After 75 years, the UN remains uncontested as the only universal and most representative international organization. Its role becomes even more important amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Kazakhstan is strongly committed to the noble goals of ESCAP to promote inclusive and sustainable socio-economic development, reduce inequalities, and expand opportunities of the people in Asia and the Pacific.
The COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the importance of multilateralism in meeting global challenges. The future we want lies in an effective UN, one that tackles global crises and one that ensures an inclusive, prosperous, equitable and just world for all.
Nepal has a strong faith in the principles and purpose of the United Nations Charter. Nepal's partnership with the United Nations covers all 3 pillars of the organization: peace and security, human rights and development.
At age 75, the United Nations is at a critical juncture. The need for universal multilateral cooperation is greater than ever, as underscored by climate change, the COVID-19 pandemic, and other global challenges that require global action. But the political will for multilateral cooperation has waned and undermined the efficacy and relevance of the global organization. The situation calls for the fresh energy and innovative ideas of the youthful generations to shore up the UN system and enhance the effectiveness of its work.
The 75 years since the founding of the UN has seen dramatic progress in the rights, protection, and the inclusive development of persons with disabilities.
75 years ago, the founding fathers, and the Soviet Union was among them, formulated the timeless principles of our relations among all countries that were then enshrined in the UN Charter and laid the foundation for our common global home, the United Nations. There is only one way for us to carry out the paramount mission of our organization if we stand up together against the global challenges of the 21st century, drawing on the principles and norms of international law in order to ensure the peaceful, decent and prosperous life for the present and future generations.
We're talking about the Asian century, where Asia would be the center of economic gravity. Looking ahead, I am hopeful that the UN will guide the region on the path of sustainable development, ensuring peace and prosperity for all.
I wish to congratulate the United Nations on the significant milestone 75 years of global service. I note in particular, and I wish to encourage your intention to work more closely with regional and sub-regional organizations, and most especially the small island nations in the Pacific region.
The UN has been a unifying force for countries to define collective aspirations and has supported people's struggles over rights and resources across Asia-Pacific. While our current reality is far from ideal, we, as civil society, continue to educate, advocate, and fight on. On its 75th year as a unifier, we count on the UN to work with us in defending people's rights, protecting the environment, and fighting inequality in the midst of rapid technological change.
To commemorate UN 75, we organized a series of global consultations throughout the year to listen to the voices of people across the world on their fears and hopes and expectations of international cooperation. There is remarkable unity among respondents everywhere. One message is clear across the world from our data. We need to upgrade and revitalize global cooperation to better deal with these and other global challenges.
We stand committed to working together with countries in Asia and the Pacific to build a more inclusive, resilient, and green world. The future we want.
Got the wrong technical file. Now, we are honored to invite a very special guest to speak to us today. Born in 1945, just like the UN, Ms. Putpong Ujin is a former staff member who served the organization from 1963 to 2000 and was a former president of the Staff Council. Ms. Ujin will be sharing with us her personal reflections on the many important milestones she has witnessed, both her and the UN's 75-year journey. Ms. Ujin? Please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for Ms. Putpong Ujin.
Thank you. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor for me to be here today to talk about my personal experiences with SCAP. I was born in June, the same year as the United Nations, a few months older. I started working with SCAP in October 1963, when I was the youngest staff member, and retired in year 2000. Of course, I was one of the oldest. 37 years altogether make me feel like I'm one of the very large family. When I first served the secretariat, it was in an old building called Sala Santitham building, until this new building was opened in 1973, and this conference hall building in 1975. During the interim period, we had to move to work in different hotels. My most memorable experience was in 1990, when we went to Namibia to help the government first election. Members, UN agencies from all over the world, including militaries from member countries, went for training and conducted the election, which was very successful, with the UN as a core organization involved. During the past 75 years, UN has many achievements to be proud of helping the world. In my mind, these stand out. Provided food to 90 million people in 80 countries. Vaccinated 58% of world's children, saving 3 million lives in a year. Assisted over 38.7 million refugees and people fleeing war. Worked with 193 countries to combat climate change and promoted sustainable practices. provided 100,000 peacekeepers to 4 continents, many of the countries with highly dangerous conditions. Fighting poverty, helping improve the health and well-being of 420 million rural poor. Using diplomacy to prevent conflict, assisted some 60 countries with their elections. Finally, the most recent UN recognition was this month, October the 9th, when its affiliate, the World Food Programme, was awarded the prestigious Nobel Peace Prize for its efforts to combat the surge in global hunger amid the COVID-19 pandemic. I am very proud to have been a UN staff member to contribute, even in a small way. And I wish the UN family every success for the future. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ujin. We will now move into the second part of the event, our regional conversation with SDG Innovators. I would now like to hand over the floor to Mr. Kaveh Zahedi, Deputy Executive Secretary of ASCAP, to moderate the conversation. Mr. Zahedi, over to you.
Thank you very much, Kavita. Excellencies who've joined us here in the room and the hundreds of people joining us online, a very warm welcome to all of you. In this part of our conversation today, joining us are 6 outstanding innovators from Asia and the Pacific, working on 3 of what are really our central challenges. The first is to make clean energy affordable and accessible for all. The second is to use technologies to help the poor access basic services. And the third is to bring about economic opportunities for women and girls. Their work is helping to shape a better future for people across our vast region. We will hear from them about the work they are doing, what is needed to scale up solutions like the ones they have put into action themselves, and how we can pull all these actions together and join hands in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Before we start, as usual, just a few words on the logistics. For our panelists, please ensure your video is turned on and your microphone off when you are not speaking. We will have 1 round of interventions amongst our panelists and then open up for questions, comments, and what we hope will be a good interactive conversation. To make that possible, for those joining us on our YouTube channel, we invite you to ask questions to the panelists and share your thoughts on the topic of today's discussion through the chat function. With that said, let us now turn to our first speaker. She is Ms. Sonika Manandha, who is the co-founder of Aloy Technologies, which is a fintech platform that helps bridge the financing gap faced by green micro-entrepreneurs. Sonika, if I could come to you first, can you tell us a little bit more about what fintech is and what your fintech platform is all about? How is it helping, in a way, with the dual challenge of closing the financing gap for micro-entrepreneurs at the same time as promoting green investment? Sonika, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Excellencies and distinguished guests. Well, before answering to that question, I would like to talk a bit about my background, and let me take you to the time when I was 5 years old. I remember riding on the minibus with my dad, and while he drove the passengers from one place to another, I used to sit in front seat with him, look at how he is driving and pressing those brakes, and sometimes he would also let me collect the fare money, right? And this was 25 years ago when my father started our transportation business by buying a minibus with a loan supported by the government. And this trust of the government in my family's entrepreneurial ability changed our track. And because of that, a daughter of a former micro entrepreneur could become a computer engineer today and speaking here in front of you all. And as I have experienced in my family, the growth of SMEs is essential in growing a prosperous economy. And Alloy, our social enterprise, was born because I wanted to make sure many other informal sector micro entrepreneurs like my father get the same financial opportunities to grow their business as we did. So back in 1995, Kathmandu became a green city pioneer with over 700 electric minibuses and all driven by women micro-entrepreneurs. These electric minibuses compared to diesel city buses reduced the CO2 equivalent to 17,000 to 22,000 kilograms a day and have greatly contributed to reducing air pollution in Kathmandu. But the same city today suffers from air pollution that's 5 times higher than the safe level. And air pollution killed 42,000 people in Nepal last year. The electric transportation sector is very well suited because of Nepal's immense hydropower potential of 43,000 megawatt. And sadly, the same country spent around $1.85 billion to import fuel in the fiscal year 2018-19. Now, I was 5 years old when this electric vehicle industry started here. However, even decades later, most of the vehicles are no longer in operation, and this fleet never grew beyond that initial 700. In the curious journey to find out why this happened, one day I met a woman named Sachita, and she's one of the remaining electric minibus driver. She told me it was difficult for her to replace her vehicle battery without a loan. Banks fearing the money would not be used properly, a solution seemed unreachable for her. So one of the main problems we saw was lack of trust concerning the misuse of funds between those looking to invest and those looking for affordable financing. There's an estimated $8 trillion credit gap for 400 million underserved MSMEs like Sachita in the world. And through Alloy, we are bridging this gap by building trust using technology for automatic fund tracking. So we are a financial platform powered by digital token that helps green micro entrepreneurs get microfinancing that tracks how their money is being used in real time at very low cost at any scale of financing. Until now, we have enabled many women micro-entrepreneurs to access affordable financing to expand their business and continue being climate heroes. Next year, we plan to reach our 1,000 women micro-entrepreneur. We really believe that the key to solving global challenges such as 2 of the SDGs, SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, and SDG 13, climate action, is by mobilizing grassroots green micro-entrepreneurs. Our vision basically is to make each dollar of investment has a traceable impact so that 400 million micro-entrepreneurs like Sachita globally grow their business, support their families, and at the same time make regions more resilient to climate change. Today, we are celebrating the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. And today, I urge everyone to realize that the real change happens from the ground up, with the power of collective grassroots action. And pandemic has shown us that there is a need for a smart and efficient investment towards grassroots. And we have built a platform to do that, whether it is for providing microcredit or training or even conditional cash transfers, all while saving humongous operation cost. We are sector agnostic and location agnostic, and we are also easily adaptable. So whether it is in agriculture, education, health, or renewable energy, we welcome development partners, foundations, the private sector, or individual like any one of us to explore possibilities with our technology and together achieve sustainable development goal, one micro entrepreneur at a time. Yeah, so that's what we have been doing. Thank you.
Sonika, thank you so much. And you know, some of the questions that have been coming in, you've in a way helped us answer, because many of the questions were it's such a big agenda, sustainable development goals or climate change. Is there anything I can do? Is there anything we can do? And I think you've helped answer that by linking your solution, your very ready-made solution, to the big problems that are embedded in the SDGs, whether it's the air pollution, whether it's the climate action, whether it's the decent work. So thank you so much for kickstarting our conversation in that way.
Thank you.
Let's now turn to our second speaker, Mr. Okrit Uahalehaka, who is the co-founder and CEO of Reicult Thailand, a social enterprise that uses machine learning and satellite imagery to help farmers in Thailand and in Pakistan increase farm productivity and access affordable loans. So, Okrit, please let us know a little bit more about how you have helped to lift farmers out of poverty, and what have you learned in terms of how to increase impact of solutions like the one that you've rolled out? Over to you, Okrit.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. It is a great honor and privilege to have this opportunity to share our social innovation that we do in Thailand and Pakistan, and how we are using technology to transform life of the poor farmers, smallholder farmers in the region. So just to paint a little bit of background for everyone in this room and on the online channels about the life of the farmers, especially in Asia and Pacific. Starting with Thailand, 40% of the Thai population, or roughly 20 million people, are small-scale farmers, but they are one of the poorest in the countries. So if you know that in the developing countries, most of the people at the bottom of the pyramid are actually small-scale farmers. For example, in Thailand, the minimum wage of a family in Thailand usually makes around $500 a month, but a family of farmers actually make just 1/3 of that. And as we all know that in the recent years, there's this recent innovation, disruption, that digital transformation that totally changed the world in terms of how people in the city can order food online, how they can travel from one location to another location in Bangkok, in Singapore, Jakarta, just by bringing up their smartphone and just calling a ride-hailing app, right? So we have seen a lot of social innovation that has totally changed the world. But I have came and looked, how come there are not so many innovations that actually lift up these small-scale farmers in the rural areas, and how we can use technology to help uplift their life. And this is present immense opportunities, because if you look at the small-scale farmers in rural areas, in just the past 3 to 4 years, the access to smartphone, access to internet has proliferated really, really fast. When I went out to the rural areas and spoke with a lot of small-scale farmers, I asked them, do you have an internet since you have a smartphone? A lot of them got back to me and said, oh, we don't know what an internet is, but we actually use Facebook, we actually use Line to communicate and talk with each other, to share our photos and share our daily life. So this presented an immense opportunity for me to see how digital penetration have went into the rural areas. So that's how we got started with Reicult. So we realized that we can totally transform how farming is done in developing countries, starting with Thailand, through a smartphone app. At the back core of what we do is that we analyze a tons of data using machine learning to analyze satellite imagery of the whole of Thailand, whole of the Asian region, and we analyze the weather data and a lot of data, and we come up with a very simple advice for the farmers in terms of when they should plant their seed, when they should fertilize the soil, when they should harvest their crops, and what type of sustainability practice they should do to improve their income, to improve their profitabilities. And we make this app totally free for the farmers to use, because we want to uplift them out of poverty. So farmers can access these great tools for free just by downloading our apps on a smartphone. But since we are a social business, we make money by analyzing all these scores and working with banks, working with insurance to ensure financial inclusion, so that banks can provide affordable loans to these farmers based on the credit scoring that we analyze through our data analytics. And we can also help crop insurance company provide crop insurance to the farmers and underwrite the risk for the farmers. So right now, just in the past 1 year, we have already reached 300,000 farmers in Thailand alone. And we are also present in Pakistan. And we have planned to deploy and scale up our technology to the other countries in the region as well, since the technology mobile phone app is very, very scalable. As the question started, that how can we ensure this scalability in terms of innovation impact? I think one of the things that we have to realize with social innovations is that it takes time. This is not just like a ride-hailing app or food delivery app where you can launch and wait just 2-3 months for it to come out and see the impact. For Breakout, my company, we took almost 4 years to find ways to help the farmers and scale up our impact to reach this stage. So one thing that I would want to emphasize is that it takes time to come up with a good social innovation. Therefore, it will require a lot of partnerships and financial tools to help scale up a company like us. So for now, I will stop at this first and happy to take any more questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm sure there will be questions and comments coming back your way, because one of the issues that's repeatedly we hear about is the growing digital divide within our region. But we hear a little bit less about how to close that digital divide. And that's exactly one of the things that you are doing with your smartphone app, especially for the small scale farmers who, as you said, are very much at the bottom of the pyramid. So, Okrit, thank you so much for your words and for sharing with us your experience. Let's move to our next speaker, who actually continue this conversation along the angle of technology and innovation, but especially for women and girls. And here I have the great pleasure to introduce Ms. Asel Kubani-Chebekova, who is the founder of the Women's Entrepreneurship Development Fund in Kyrgyzstan. Asel, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us, how has your work helped to provide opportunities to women to prosper as entrepreneurs and become a major engine of growth for the economy? Asel, over to you.
Thank you. It's an honor for me to deliver a speech today. My name is Asel and I'm 24 years old and I'm speaking from Kyrgyzstan. I'm a feminist and a young activist. I'm volunteering since my 13 years old and I have initiated dozens of projects for young people and worked with them in my country. But last year I founded the Women's Entrepreneurship Development Fund in Kyrgyzstan to reduce economic inequality among girls and women, especially in rural areas. We are creating opportunities, providing trainings, mentorship, and working on making accessible financial resources, including creating women support community. By investing in supporting women and girls in rural areas, we are strengthening the voices and actions of one of the key population groups to achieve sustainable development goals. By today, we covered more than 580 women from rural areas on the national level and helped them to launch their enterprises. Now we are assisting our government to develop the first national women's entrepreneurship development program in Kyrgyzstan. Today, only 33% of women are self-employed in my country. Following the COVID-19 crisis, hundreds of women in my country have lost their jobs, and many of them hard hit by existing inequalities like unequal pay and less access to financial services. So today we need to move towards a care economy focused on people and the planet and create measures that value social progress, recognize unpaid care work as a work and that gives a right to social protection, connects social protection and taxing system to individual rights. I want to highlight today that we need to redefine a global narrative around girls and women, from victims and the vulnerable to powerful agents of change and the critical drivers of progress. Recognizing the power and potential of young women as me to deliver change, it's time to support and partnership with us and to achieve sustainable development goals and create the world we want to live in. I want to say that a gender equal world is healthier, wealthier, and more productive and more peaceful. Today we see how COVID-19 is affecting women and men differently, how pandemics increasing inequalities for girls and women, as before mentioned about the digital inequality among women and girls, among women and men. That's why we have always have to apply a gender lens to ensure we address the unequal needs of girls and women when responding to a crisis, but also to leverage the unequal expertise and talent of women and girls. This includes positioning girls, women, and young people in all their diversity and in all conditions. And we must safeguard the progress that we already have made towards gender equality. So today, my organization is teaching and providing digital instruments and enhancing the potential in digital entrepreneurship of girls and women, especially in rural areas, including creating access to e-market. Concluding my speech, I want to encourage everyone who is listening and all decision makers not to think and say what we can do for young people or what we can do for women, but rather think and say what can we do in partnership with young people and women. Girls and women must be a priority, never an afterthought in every crisis, everywhere. You all have a role to play to heal the world from inequality and injustice. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, I think you really helped us to sort of continue that conversation about finding solutions to reach people, solutions to reach parts of our community that, as you say, are very much part of the solution, part of the answer to sustainable development. As you said, women and girls are very powerful agents for change, but how do we help to connect them up? And digital entrepreneurship and access to e-markets, it's certainly one way. And again, I think you helped us answer so many of the comments that we're getting in the YouTube chat of whether I can do anything. And you've clearly shown that one person can indeed do something, and something big, and then slowly take it to scale. So thank you so much, Asel, for bringing that into our conversation. Let's move in this first round to our next discussant, who is from Fiji, Ms. Sagufta Janif, a champion in the fight against the climate crisis, as well as an innovator who is turning plastic waste into marketable products and creating jobs for women living in poverty. Sagufta, over to you to share with us this dual mission that you have. What more is needed for women and girls to succeed as the entrepreneurs of tomorrow, and how have you helped them to take the first steps in that direction? Sagufta, over to you.
Bulavinaka, everyone, and thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Shagufta, and I'm the founder of my social enterprise, the Fusion Hub. So I'd just like to take us back to my solution and how we are helping the women in our communities. So the problem that we're addressing is the waste problem. Globally, 2.12 billion tons of trash is dumped in the ocean annually, killing over 100,000 sea mammals. So the Fusion Hub is a zero waste lifestyle brand creating lifestyle change solutions to minimize our overconsumption behavior, which is directly linked to the zero waste crisis, to the waste crisis, my apologies. And we do this by selling sustainable upcycled furniture and home decor pieces made from waste. We also have a mobile zero waste refillery. We also do cleaning and beauty products made from organic waste without the use of plastic packaging, and we create reusable alternatives to some commonly used plastic products. We are also working on creating zero waste Airbnb spaces for the tourism market and a zero waste tourist starter pack, so the guests coming into our country can reduce their waste footprint while they are visiting our shows. Part of our solution is to provide our customers with coaching and mentoring support so that they are able to easily transition into the new lifestyle and incorporating technology so that the solution is accessible to a wider audience. Our brand is about inclusivity, and we do this by providing capacity building opportunities for women, creating co-working spaces for them with tools and equipment so that they're able to start their own small businesses and feed into our supply chain by addressing the gaps that we have. So acknowledging that some of these women are single mothers, we also support them.
Shagufta, just let me interrupt you 1 second. Don't pull too much on your microphone because we get a little bit of a noise. Carry on. Sorry to interrupt.
Sure. Thank you. So, acknowledging that some of these women are single mothers, we also support them by giving them access to free childcare services while they are participating in our 2 weeks Waste to Worth capacity building programs. Till date, we have upcycled 4,500 tons of waste, created income generating opportunities for 60 women, and stopped another 5,000 tons of waste from ending up in the landfills by selling eco friendly, reusable products. Our contribution to SDG 12, responsible consumption and production, has been recognized as one of the top solutions to development problems in the Pacific Islands by the Commonwealth Youth Awards this year. In the Pacific Islands, you will see more grassroots level solutions like these because the young people really understand the problems and the best ways to address them. Most of the times, when we take part in global competitions or try to access international fundings, our solutions and its impacts are not recognized because it's not considered as innovative. But the realization and recognition needs to be given to these solutions because we are actually making changes. And if we get the right support, we will be able to solve a lot of the development problems we are facing today. We need to be included, our solutions need to be recognized, and our leaders need to work with us and support us so that we are able to rapidly scale these solutions. Our education system also needs an overhaul. The world is changing, and we are still training the younger generation to be job seekers rather than job creators, innovators, and change makers. In the Pacific, there is a huge gap in the labor market in terms of skills and the expertise we really need. Instead of getting international experts, why can't we encourage local capacity building to address the gaps in the market? Pacific women are subjected to stereotypical job roles, and most of the times the support they are provided with is a band-aid solution like food packs and other freebies, which ends in just a few days. So I want our leaders to support organizations like ours, like mine and other young entrepreneurs, so that we can provide these women with capacity building opportunities so they can access income generating opportunities such as employment and entrepreneurship, which are more sustainable solutions to addressing SDG 5 and SDG 1. So there's a lot of conversation happening around supporting the younger generations and their initiatives. But when we do come up with sustainable and scalable solutions, there are so many barriers put in front of us that most of the young people decide to give up as soon as they begin. We find issues with accessing bank loans and other financial products. More support is often given to established organizations and firms, and there is also a gap between what the economy truly needs and what the leaders and our governments are investing in. We need to start focusing on our people and the planet before placing importance on profit and personal gain. For all the young people listening to me today and my fellow speakers, envision the world you want to live in and start creating that world for yourself and for the future generations, because if you do not take that step, then we shouldn't expect anyone else to do that for us. So the change definitely starts with you, and if you feel alone in your journey, and then just reach out to those who are in a similar path. There is no greater strength than asking for help when you need it. And always work to inspire. Remember, you can fail a million times, but you only need to be right once. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and all very, very inspiring work. You mentioned just one of the SDGs, but in essence, you're working across so many more of them, right? It's not just about SDG 12, but the income generation, the waste, the climate. You're literally working across the whole lot. And one of the things that you mentioned, and I will at a later stage hopefully be able to come back to you on that, is education. And we're seeing questions coming on our YouTube chat as well about education. How should we be changing education? How can we reorient education? So we may hopefully be able to come back and get a little bit more of your guidance specifically on that issue that you mentioned.
Sure.
Very good. So now we're going to turn to Ms. Shutong Liu, who is the CEO and founder of Mo Shioneko. Through this social enterprise is helping to turn waste cooking oil into sustainable biofuel, protecting, of course, food safety while reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So, Shutong, what has been the impact of your work so far, and really what more can be done and should be done? Over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed. Carry on.
So my name is Shu Tong. I'm from China. I'm the founder of Motion Eco. It's my honor to be here today sharing what we do currently in China. Motion Eco is actually a social enterprise that we turn waste cooking oil into sustainable biofuels can be used in transportation sector. As a Chinese, I'm very proud about like our Chinese food. So I guess many people in the world, also our foreign friends, love Chinese food. But on the other hand, like we have to admit, we use a lot of cooking oil in our dishes. And for the past few years, that it has been a social problem because a lot of waste being generated and a lot of waste cooking oil being illegally collected and being used back for cooking again, which creating a huge social problem for the Chinese people. And I think that's also might be a problem for a lot of developing countries in Indonesia or in India. It's happening a lot. And turns out we have found a solution that we can turn those waste cooking oil into a sustainable biofuel. And it can be a very great alternative source for the trucks, for the fleet, and even for aviation fuel replacement. So, and each unit can reduce up to 90% greenhouse gas emissions. So what we found is a very great solution to also eliminate the social problem of food safety, at the same time also providing renewable energy and then make our environment better. It's a win-win solution. So in China, that I founded Motion Eco, the goal is to create a sustainable supply chain to collect the waste cooking oil from all the restaurants and then turn them into renewable energy and use in the local fleet. What we have been doing now is based in Shanghai, Nanjing, and Chengdu City in China. We're currently collecting from like 1,000 restaurants, and each month we're collecting about 1,000 tons of waste cooking oil from those restaurants and turn them into biodiesel and use in local fleet. Currently, there are 100 buses in Shanghai that are running on those biodiesels, which helps to also reduce greenhouse gas emissions for the city. Our goal is to turn every city. So if we can also adapt this solution into each city, so we are able to turn every city into a green oil field. We think that we can conduct each city as a green oil field and compare with the fossil fuel. The green oil field is much more cleaner and saving the planet. So if we can also turn the Chengdu city into a green field, we can turn about like 7 to 10 million tons of the greenhouse gas emissions being saved from those green oil fields. And what we think, if this solution can work in China, it can also work in a lot of developing countries. We can replicate this solution into all over the world. Like in Bangkok, we can also replicate this solution, then to turn Bangkok into the green oil field for Thailand as well. So we hope there's also a lot of capital and government support into these kind of solutions to also eliminate the social problems at the same time, also providing green solutions to the planet.
Thank you so much. And your solution is relevant across our region, absolutely across our region. You mentioned Bangkok, and of course, this is another one of the cities where food is so important to our lives and our culture in a way here. So your solution is definitely scalable and replicable. So what would it take to get there? And I will come back to you in our next round to think a little bit about scaling up on action, because so many questions are coming in on climate and climate change and how can we turn the corner on climate change. And as you mentioned, you've got a double solution on the cooking oil side on the one hand, but also providing and encouraging in a way the use of biodiesel in the transport side. So thank you very much, Shutong. We're going to turn now to Ms. Daya Roro Esti Widya Putri, who is an elected member of parliament in Indonesia and also co-founder of the Indonesian Energy and Environmental Institute. Ibu Daya, your background and role is truly exceptional because you're both a lawmaker and an innovator. And with this dual role in mind, and having heard from the many innovators from around our region, what are the possible ways for decarbonization in our region to reach a much broader scale than we have right now? And as you guide us from your experience, what are the respective roles of innovators on the one hand and legislators on the other hand in driving this decarbonization, but driving innovation towards sustainability in general? Ibu, I turn to you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to firstly make sure that everyone can hear me properly.
Very well, thank you.
Wonderful. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May peace and blessings be upon you. Firstly, let me introduce myself. My name is Diarra Esi, and I'm an MP from Indonesia. And I'd like to say happy 75th anniversary to the United Nations. And I'd like to convey my greetings as well to Ms. Armida, our Executive Secretary of UN SCAP, Ms. Gita Sabarwa, His Excellency Don Pramud Winai, Deputy Prime Minister and also Minister of Foreign Affairs that was here with us this morning, and to everyone in UN SCAP and all the speakers present today. So firstly, thank you so much for the question, for a very important question. When we talk about decarbonization as a whole, we are essentially referring to the process of reducing carbon intensity, right, by lowering the amount of greenhouse gas emissions, particularly produced by the burning of fossil fuels. And with the case of the energy sector, for example, this really just translates to increasing the prominence of a low carbon power generation. And that correlates directly with the shift from an economy that is purely driven by fossil fuels to one that is driven by more environmentally friendly sources. And with that being said, we're talking about renewables in general. And taking note also that 189 countries, including those in Asia and the Pacific region, have made their individual contributions and also commitments, right, in realizing decarbonization. And we see this happening through the ratification of the Paris Agreement in 2015. And I remember this event quite well, as at the time I was studying in London at Imperial and was learning a lot about environmental policy. So this was heavily discussed during my studies. But I remember the debate being, and the challenge really is in ensuring that countries are committed towards their NDCs and that they actually follow through by executing their goals, right? And this can be done through policy making and then that eventually translating to action. So when we look at Indonesia as an example, we have ratified this agreement, which has been translated to law number 16, year 2016, and with the goal of really just decreasing greenhouse gas emissions by 29% in 2030. And when we refer also, again, back to the energy sector, in accordance to our national energy policy, our target is to achieve 23% renewables by 2025, and also 31% by 2050. 31% being a majority, where sources coming from others, such as fossil fuel, is less than 31%. But the problem is right now we're standing at 9%, right? So this is a challenge that we're currently facing. But again, there are multiple ways in which we can decrease CO2 emissions within the energy sector, and that's been discussed in our NDC strategy, and that includes, energy efficiency measures, the implementation of clean coal technology, and also improving our fuel quality. So really just enacting the Euro 4 standard throughout the country, and of course the implementation of renewable energy. And right now, the good news is we're currently working on passing a renewable energy bill at the Indonesian Parliament with alongside the ministry, and it's been successfully made it into this year's legislation priority list, which is one of our greatest achievements. And this correlates directly when we talk about the SDGs, SDG 7, clean and affordable and clean energy, sorry, and also SDG 13 pertaining to climate action. And so we hope that we can address issues pertaining to the implementation of renewables, whether it be associated to pricing, the lack of political will, which I guess now we see that there is, a strong political will in pushing this forward, and also the intermittency issue, technology issues, and these are just some of the challenges that we're currently discussing with the government, and also with really just everybody, whether it be organizations, academias, and really just trying to find the right solution. We have a 442 gigawatts potential, most of which comes from in relation to hydropower of 94.3 gigawatts and also geothermal 28.5 gigawatts. And remembering also that we have 40% of the world's reserves is in Indonesia. And so it's been announced recently by the Minister actually of Energy that our oil reserve will last up until 2029. And so unless there are, explorations taking place in the future, but this gives even more of an incentive for us to focus on realizing our renewable energy target. With the context of Asia and the Pacific as a whole, this particular region accounts for more than half of global energy consumption, right? So with 85% of that regional consumption coming from fossil fuels, and this is just data from IRENA. So again, we still see that fossil fuel is a dominating energy source, and so our goal together should be to not treat renewables as an alternative source, but as a main source, right? And all in all, a low carbon energy future requires clear vision and strong commitment by governments in countries across Asia and the Pacific. And we see great examples from countries like India, Bangladesh, China, really just implementing renewable energy on a large scale, right? And on top of that, I'd like to end this by really just stressing the importance of collaboration. Collaboration is key in achieving any goal. We have a term in Indonesia, and it's called gotong royong, collectively working together in achieving anything that we set our mind to, right? And so this very essence of gotong royong is something that we need to really push forward, going forward, collaboration. And we also understand that climate change we need a multidisciplinary approach in solving climate change. So everybody's role is very important, whether it be entrepreneurs, academias, the youth, getting the youth actively voicing out their visions for the world and really just making concrete actions and solutions. And again, alongside the collaboration of the parliamentarians and also the government. So we have to work together in creating this future for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and your role is so vital, because, as I say, you have a sort of a foot in each camp, an innovator who knows what's going on the ground, but a legislator who knows the importance of pushing that legislation and having the framework to encourage the scale up of action. So thank you so much for really rounding up the first round of our conversation. So we have a few minutes just to field back to you as our panelists some of the issues of interest that we're hearing from people who are kindly watching online, and I think there's three big things that people are really interested to know. What they can do, young people especially. What can young people do to fight climate change? Obviously, it's fundamental to have the structural shifts around decarbonization and the new legislation on different standards for fuel emission, etc. But what can young people do when it comes to fighting climate change? And I think actually you lead by example as our panelists. But that's one set of questions we're getting. The second one is really about COVID and COVID recovery. What has COVID changed, and does this provide an opportunity that maybe hadn't existed beforehand for pushing different solutions, different development pathways? Maybe they are we are more receptive to those than we have been in the past. And then the third one is about education and what kind of changes are needed in our education system, in essence, especially to push for and to create a generation not only of job creators, but ones who don't just look at the economic bottom line, that a generation of people who look at environmental protection as a very fundamental part of our our development. So those are the three sets of questions that seem to be coming in. Let me maybe go back to Sonika and Shutong, and then back to you, Ibudaya, to talk about the climate, the fight for climate change, and what young people could do. Sonika, could I come first to you on your thoughts?
Yes, thank you so much for the question. I've been following the YouTube comments as well. Yeah, so the first question about how can youth collaborate or contribute towards solving climate change, the first point I would like to mention is use your skill, whatever skill you have. For example, me, myself, I'm a computer engineer, right? And when I think about computer engineering, when I was studying computer engineering, all I thought about was programming and being on the computer and doing stuff in computer, right? But I could never think that today I'm working with the grassroots. I'm talking with the micro entrepreneurs and bringing that experience to my tech team and telling them what's needed on the ground to help these climate heroes do whatever they're doing on the ground. So I would like to urge all the youth to use whatever skill they have. They could be a lawyer, they could be a computer engineer, they could be an activist, they could be a doctor. Anybody can use their skill to tackle climate change. And again, emphasizing mostly in believing in the collective grassroots action. And you as a youth is one of those grassroots, and then you can mobilize the grassroots action yourself as well. So that's one of the points I would like to touch upon.
Excellent point. Shutong, let me come to you to continue that conversation. I mean, use the particular skills that you have, because every skill is right now relevant to this fight against climate change. Over to you, Shutong.
Definitely, and I think youth are the new power to change the world. And I think youth in this world now is more creative. It's more passionate about saving the planet. So definitely, I think every youth has to take the opportunity to use your skills and but find the right tackle angle, and then to tackle also unify the power of youth together. And definitely, in my case, that I find my specific route and unique background to tackle this problem. But I mean, each youth or each young generation people, they have different background and experience different social problems, and they are more passionate to find the solutions to tackle their own problems. And if everyone comes up with the solution to tackle their own problems, then unified together, we will help to make the world better together. Definitely.
Thank you so much. And Ibudaya, let me come back to you. An incredibly inspiring set of speakers we have here. Should they all be heading to Parliament? Is the legislation the missing trick right now?
Thank you for the question. It would be amazing to see more youth in politics and in parliament voicing these issues and making concrete changes through policy making, understanding that policy is an umbrella in order to achieve really just anything, particularly in enacting and realizing the SDGs as a whole. So I'd like to kind of bring our attention back to the current pandemic that we are currently faced with, right? I've realized that this pandemic has managed to really just put a lot of things to perspective. On top of the climate crisis, we're also currently being dealt with a health crisis, and that's ultimately impacted both an economic and also social crisis as well. And I always say this in every opportunity that I get, but in the very essence, the current state we live in today is really just a teaser of what's to come if we continue doing business as usual, if we don't address climate change the way that we should. And we're talking about the potential of an increase in air pollution, right? Sea level rise affecting certain parts of the world, to be underwater even, and also leading to mass migration. Temperature is so high that becomes thoroughly unbearable for humans to live in, massive drought, heat stroke, and everything combined associated to climate change. you can only imagine, and I'd like everyone to really just ask ourselves, is this the world that we envision for our future? And so if we don't address climate change the way that we should, and on an alert basis, then this is the type of future that we are headed towards. Again, tying back into the role that every individual has, I'd like everybody to really just take a moment and introspect, really think about what is my role in creating a sustainable future for all. Right. Everybody, as highlighted earlier, has a purpose, has a sense of purpose and a role in achieving this target, whether it be coming from the legislator point of view. And that is why I've been so adamant in trying to push a renewables energy bill, because this is the kind of legislation we need. We can't keep thinking about legislations that can only be felt within 5 years down the line, but really just pushing through legislations 20 years down the line, 50 years down the line, that can really be felt by citizens in, for example, Indonesia. But aside from that, the government also has a crucial part to play, and the youth. How can you guys work together, collaborate, discuss, and really just enact certain actions in addressing these issues? And it doesn't need to be big, right? When we talk about climate change, it's such a big problem, and sometimes you can get quite overwhelmed to the thinking, well, am I really doing enough, to address climate change? For example, changing our daily habits, from shifting from using plastic bags to reusable bags. This is a very small change, but it's concrete, and it does create big impacts when we do it on a daily basis, right? And so recognizing the role that you play and collaborating is so important. And when we tie in, lastly, with enterprises, for example, this plays a very, very important role, because not only does it bring innovation, but it also creates jobs, right? Green jobs, and that boosts employment in the right direction, because that also pushes green economy, the enactment of a circular economy, and this should be the new way of doing business going forward. So these are just some of the things that I'd like to convey. Thank you.
And thank you for conveying them so eloquently to us. I know that we're slightly running out of time, but I would like to give a last opportunity to Asel, Okrit, and Shagufta to come in. Maybe you can talk a little bit more on the COVID side, right? I mean, all three of you are working with highly impacted communities from the COVID pandemic, whether it's the farming community, whether it's women and girls, highly impacted by COVID. So maybe you could help us and wrap up from your perspective on the impact of COVID, both of course not just negative, but maybe the opportunity that COVID has opened up to us. Asel, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, thank you for the question. As I mentioned before, really the COVID-19 affected negatively, and it was hard hit for women, especially women in rural areas and girls. And actually, we in our country, we were thinking what we can do and how we can help our women. And we decided that the first thing is what's the very important is partnership of government, civil society, and the business together to create new opportunities for women and to make them accessible. For example, we're talking about the e-market, and it's very important today to gather, to make access and to provide trainings and maybe technologies, access to internet, and other very important elements that will help women to successfully continue their entrepreneurship and to be part of the economy. I think it's one of the important things. The second thing that is very important today is our women, when we shared that, of course, it was very hard period, but also it was the period to think about the new opportunities. And our women who live in rural areas, they shared that this situation helped them to think broadly and to see the opportunities not only in Kyrgyzstan but also in the region and in the world, and there is no board, and then now they can connect and find new partners, new investors, not only in the country but out of the country. And I think this is also about the partnership, not only inside of the country, but also about the strengthening the partnership and creating opportunities and platforms for women and women entrepreneurs to find new partners from other countries.
And also the other thing is, I think is very important, and also I'm impressed by other young people who delivered speech today and the project that they're doing. I think it's very, very important to implement this kind of project and to share experiences, and maybe to try to implement this kind of ideas in our countries. Maybe it will also help to make quickly the changes and make the changes more sustainable. That's the main ideas. And also the third thing is very important, but this I want to share that government support is very important for everyone, especially for young people and for women. And now in my country, we have some changes in political situation and uncertain situation also. But now we see that our government started to provide opportunities for young people. For example, just 2 weeks ago, we had the first time the youngest minister in our government. And also I think it's one of the great results how we can provide opportunities for young people to make changes and also to take responsibilities and to be partners of government and everyone who want to make sustainable changes and sustainable results. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Asal. And let me immediately turn to you, Okrit, for your view.
Yes, sure. So I can talk about from the farming communities in Thailand during the COVID crisis. So it presents both problem and opportunities. Starting with the problems, we see a lot of the context with the farming in developing countries is that usually it is reaching the aging society where most of the farmers are in their 50s to 60s, where the children actually go work in factory in the cities. So what this means is that in a household income, half would come from farming and another half would come from the children that actually work in factory. But with the COVID crisis, this means that these children of the farmers are laid off from the factories. This means that half of the household income, which is already very, very, very low, is gone because their children are laid off, they have no income and have to come back to the rural areas to live with their parents. And this presents a huge polarization with the politics and the social norms in Thailand, because Thailand is one of the worst countries in the world in terms of inequality with the people in the city versus people in the rural areas. So how can we use digital tools, provide trainings, provide digital literacy trainings to these people in the farming community to increase their income, especially during the COVID time? And this is one of the things that we are working on. And this actually presents a huge opportunity because as we all know that COVID actually increased the rate of digital adoption. For example, I would have never imagined that we can do such a conference like this, where I'm in another part of the country, other people are in other countries, and some people are in Bangkok, and we can do an online virtual conference. And this is especially true in the rural areas as well, because once COVID comes, it actually speeds up the adoption of digital tools for the farmers, because they realize that if they farm like before, they wouldn't survive in this economic climate. So we have seen that Record app download rate has increased dramatically over the past few months. And with the children of the farmers actually goes back to the rural areas, they actually help teach their parents in terms of how to adopt digital tools. And they actually bring new innovation and new innovative idea into the rural areas. So this actually presents a huge opportunity for people who work in rural areas, that there are new workforce that are trained in the factories, in the cities, that are going back to rural areas to transform their community. So the opportunity is that how can we know the problems, but work on the opportunities and help uplift this community during this tough time.
Thank you so much, and thank you for bringing the stories of these emerging and new opportunities that you're seeing from your work on the ground. Again, very, very heartening and very inspiring. Shagufta, finally, we're over to you for your views to bring us to a close.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry about the background noise. I'm at the airport, going to board a flight for a project. So yes, definitely relevant. This COVID situation is definitely relevant to our Fiji as well, because tourism market was one of our biggest market and has been largely impacted, and most of the younger generations were working in this market. So now that we have seen that they have realized the potential of entrepreneurship, and we have seen some of these amazing young people turning to entrepreneurship and support mechanisms, accessing these support mechanisms to start their businesses. So this has definitely brought in that opportunity, and it will definitely generate more economic activity, and people have started to realize the potential starting your own business can have. So yeah, so that is what I would like to contribute to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and we don't want you to miss your flight, but thank you very much. The potential of entrepreneurship. You know, let me bring this part to close by just saying that at the UN we are incredibly eager to work with that potential. Very eager to engage with the young innovators who, like all of our panelists, all of you who are finding real life solutions to the big challenge of sustainability. And we have our executive secretary who's sitting next to me. We have the UN resident coordinator for Thailand who've sat throughout the session, because this is so important for the future of the UN as well. Many of you mentioned partnership in that context, and it really is my honor to announce as part of our session today that ESCAP, in partnership with Mahidol University, we're launching the SDG Solutions Lab. The lab will bring together policymakers with SDG-related challenges, students, young innovators, and entrepreneurs with ideas to develop and implement innovative and technological solutions to help progress towards achieving the SDGs. So really a lab to try to come up with some more of the solutions, like the ones that you've been so kind to share with us today. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the president of Mahidol University for the generous financial and in-kind support for the establishment of the lab. As we've been talking, our colleagues have collected a mapping of the ideas that the audience has shared with us on the themes of today. And I do invite all of you to visit the mapping and learn about the other ideas and solutions that are now circulating. The partnership that we could potentially create between any of you who are listening to this is going to be a big part of any solution going forward. So with that, I wish I could give a standing ovation to this panel, because they've been brilliant. You've been brilliant. Thank you for your insights, for bringing so much inspiration, for your leadership, and for carrying really the mantle of our sustainable development agenda forward. The work you've shared today is indeed a huge inspiration for all of us. With that said, and apologies for the slight tardiness, I hand back over to our MC.
Thank you so much, Kaveh. And of course, anytime over time, it was a very interesting conversation, so well deserved for a little bit of extra minutes. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I now invite Ms. Armida Salcia Alisjabana to share with us her concluding insights from the conversations shared with us today. Ms. Alisjabana, if you will.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kaveh, for moderating the very insightful and interesting session. And thank you for the inspiring stories, work from all the speakers. I have to mention by one, Sonika, Okrit, Azel, Sagupta Dia, and Shutong Liu. Yeah, so I took notes, several of the highlights from what you shared to all of us. A few of the, let's say, keywords, close the digital divide, use of technology application, innovation, SMEs, MSMEs, entrepreneurship, women, youth. And all of you have shown to us, not only by words, but through your action-oriented, concrete work to tackle at the same time climate change, environmental problems, poverty, inequality. Jobs being created, decent jobs, business, growing business, and then all this, enabled to support the families and communities. I think this is great, and all these examples are not from one or two countries, I think, from countries, and several of you actually work in several countries, which is very, very, very good, very inspiring, and from all the 5 sub-regions in Asia Pacific, Southeast Asia, Northeast Asia, Pacific, Central Asia, South Asia. Yes, so that's we would like how to scale up all these activities and the initiative that is just launched. We hope that we can work further with all of you and many more of you. This is about UN system, not only ESCAP, UN system at the regional level, Asia Pacific, UN system at the country level, and here in Thailand, Gita is here. So we are looking forward to work further with all of you. So with that, I hand over to Kavita. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Alice Japana. So as part of our UN 75 initiative, we invited a group of elders whose 7-decade journey somewhat matched the UN's, as well as several younger generation colleagues and volunteers and influencers from across the Asia-Pacific region to share with us, let's say, their words of wisdom on the future we want and the UN we need. I invite you to view this video compilation.
On the approval of the Charter of the United Nations.
The wisdom, ideals, and aspirations that govern the founding of the United Nations are as valid today as they were 75 years ago. For at its most lofty yet fundamental level, namely the preservation of world peace and security, there can be no denying that the United Nations is and has been, since its founding, an unqualified success.
The United Nations turned 75 this October, which calls on us, the citizens of the world, to join the conversation and present ideas for tackling the challenges that we face, including COVID-19, the climate crisis, and widening inequalities in our society.
The future that I want is the future that is peaceful for everyone at every corner of the world.
The world needs a generation who is brave enough to voice their views on a better life for the present and for the future.
मैले परिकल्पना गरेको विश्व, हिंसा रहित विश्व, सर्वधर्म समभाव भएको विश्व, शिक्षा, स्वास्थ्य, खानेपानी लगायतका आधारभूत आवश्यकताहरूमा प्रत्येक व्यक्तिको पहुँच भएको विश्व.
I envision a future which every girl has access to good education and every woman achieve their rights.
We must imagine a world where people are respected and treated equally, regardless of their gender.
My vision for future is a peaceful world where every individual contributes to its sustainability and wherein all people live together harmoniously and help each other grow.
Volunteerism is one way everyone can do their part in making a world a better and happier place. Most mine is what we want to see.
I would say that volunteering is a fulfilling engagement for seniors and wow experience for youngsters.
To me, the most important action that we have to do right now is to accept that diversity is everywhere. We need to act upon together to respect it with real actions, not just on the paper.
I envision a future where all sustainable development goals are achieved that will benefit everyone through cooperation across all boards, starting from the government, private sectors, and all the way down to communities.
I wish to see the UN empowering people on the ground, amplify their voices, because I believe people collective efforts are the key success to overcome today's challenges.
To do that, you will have to take affirmative actions and get them involved in every step of the way.
The public and private sectors need to work together in order to adopt lifestyle-changing policies, resulting in an environmentally sustainable future for the future generations.
I hope we will overcome this pandemic soon, and there will be no poverty, no injustice, no inequality, and the world will be peaceful for everyone. Hope today's youth will lead this process and make this world livable and peaceful for all.
A generation that knows that everyone has the right and obligation to contribute towards the progress and survival on all of us.
What you do today can create a better world for tomorrow.
Thank you very much. For those online, thank you very much for tuning in and your active engagement on YouTube. Your voices and questions and comments have been heard. I wish you all online the very best. For our in-room audiences,